Welcome to Something More with Chris Boyd. Chris Boyd is a certified financial planner practitioner and senior vice president financial advisor at Wealth Enhancement Group, one of the nation's largest registered investment advisors. We call it Something More because we'd like to talk not only about those important dollar and cents issues, but also the quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Here he is, your fulfillment facilitator, your partner in prosperity, advising clients on Cape Cod and across the country. Here's your host, J. Christopher Boyd.
Thanks for being with us for another episode of Something More with Chris Boyd. I'm here with Jeff Perry. We are both of the AMR team with Wealth Enhancement Group, and we have a special guest today. Our guest is Dr. Laura Mattia. Do you say it Mattia or Mattia? I want to make sure I do it right.
Mattia, but that's okay. Everybody.
Mattia. Okay,
yes.
I wasn't sure.
You're
So, and it's great to have you with us. You have well, we're going to get to hear your story. You have a prolonged history of all kinds of academic and professional accomplishments. Let's just start by getting to know you a little bit about it. Thanks for being with us. You're relatively new to Wealth Enhancement Group.
Yes. So I'm actually a partner of yours, effectively, in the Wealth Enhancement Group. And we joined mid last year. So we're fairly new.
We're not ahead of you, as you know. We started a few months before that.
Right. So my story, I mean, I could go into all kind of tangential things. However, just to be on the more professional level, I started out in corporate finance, and actually I had an MBA in finance, and I wanted to becoming an executive there, one of the few women in the executive ranks. And women would often come to me and ask me questions. Oh, I'm going through a divorce, I'm trying to figure out what my property settlement should look like. I need some help, getting out of this debt or whatever. And I would help them. And that was kind of my first foray into kind of doing more of a personal financial planning. I wound up taking a CFO position for a family office in Manhattan for a very famous, actually New Yorker. And that was kind of, I'm not making decisions, helping a CEO make decisions on what property and plant equipment they need to purchase. I'm helping somebody really execute their life. And I loved that. And so that's how I got into the personal finance. But it's always been with that recognition that there are a lot of women out there that need financial help. So everything that I've done, even my PhD dissertation was around women and money. I've published a lot of research, which has all been about women and money, widows and money. I've done a lot of, every quarter I do a divorce workshop at a local women's 501c3 program. I've just been really very dedicated on supporting that specific niche. I'm not going to say that I don't serve men, because I do as well. I'm just particularly sensitive to that demographic.
Well, we're going to talk about some of the challenges that women face, particularly married women, and we'll dig into that in more depth. Tell us about your current practice, where you're located, and some of the details, who you work with.
So I'm in beautiful Sarasota, Florida. I still pinch myself. We moved down here in 2014. I always say I escaped the New York area. And we're very, despite the occasional hurricane, which can be a little bit, can fluster you a bit, everything else is just, I love it. So I really feel fortunate that I was able to come down here. And when we moved, my husband, I was teaching at Rutgers. I had a practice up there, and my husband came home and said, I want to move. And he arranged it in such a way that it was enticing enough that I just threw everything up in the air and said, okay, fine, I'll move. And moved down here, and immediately we found our own little things that we were doing and picked up our life and went on. So
that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
How did you manage to juggle the sort of a foot in both academia and a foot in the practical application of financial planning concepts in people's lives?
Yeah. So firstly, Chris, if you, as we get to know each other better, you're going to find out that I'm a little bit, I've been told that I'm wound tight a bit. I have tended to always take on a lot. I'm not used to working less than 60, 70 hours a week. That's just the
Yes.
way I'm wired. I don't know why. I think I'm still trying to I guess prove the reason why I should exist. I don't know. The
Yeah.
psychological, I'm sure the psychologist would have something to say about me. Um,
You're trying to make an impact. I
I
love
guess,
that.
yeah.
I love that.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I just, in fact, I just did a seminar 2 days ago with a group of women, and we talked a lot about values. And I do this value exercise every year. I've been doing it since back in the 90s when I got a Franklin planner, and they
Yeah.
kind of pushed that whole concept. And every year I write down my values and I try to filter the things I'm going to choose to do, whether it's using my very valuable resource of money or my very valuable resource of time
Mhm.
through those values. Because the problem is that I think everything's interesting. If I do everything, like I mean, just because I can doesn't mean I should. I mean, there's just not enough time in the day. So I try to whittle it down. But so I can see, like, with the academia and the working with people in the practical area, there's a lot of synergy there. There's a lot of I
See how
like
one could inform the other and help to balance them both with, the practical benefits of the experience as well as the, conceptual how to apply that in people's lives. Yeah.
And for a lot of people, my clients tend to be definitely smarter than the average beer. They want to understand, they want to learn. They don't want to just hear, "Oh, this is my idea," just go with it. They want to hear, "Well, what were you comparing it to? What are the other choices, and what are the pros and cons of those choices, and why are you kind of directing me in this way?" And so, to understand it at a deeper level where I can explain it in terms that people can digest, without jargon, without, the vernacular, the financial industry. It's really important to me to be able to do that for them.
You've been published as well. Was this purely an outcome of your doctorate efforts, or was it a passion of some other type?
Yes. So my the chair of my dissertation and all that they were very adamant that you don't get a PhD just to teach. You could have taught anyway. You
Mhm.
really should get engaged in research, and so I did. And I've always loved statistics, and I love what you can do with them, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. So I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the process of research. I have not enjoyed the process of getting it published. Getting it published is a
Yeah.
pain in the neck.
Yeah. That sounds like it would be. Um, you have a podcast. I see, for those watching our video, which, if you're not aware, you only listen to us through the audio podcast. You can also catch us on YouTube or our website webpage, which you can find through typing in something more with Chris Boyd, but any.com. And then you have a Money Matriarchs podcast. Want to hear about that. And also, I understand you've done a TED Talk as well. So I want to hear about
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Okay.
okay.
The podcast, actually, I've done. Actually, this is an outgrowth that occurred many, many years ago, and I launched a podcast back in 2010. And then, with my move and everything else, it kind of fizzled. And this is a relaunched podcast, really. And the whole podcast, the tagline is "Inspiring Women to Harness the Power of Money for Good." And what I'm trying to communicate is it's not just, well, it's good for ourselves and our families. It's good for the community. It's good for the world. There's a lot of ways that we can incorporate the concept of doing good and making a difference. Um, the specific show, is intended to showcase other women who have done interesting things in the community or in their own
Yeah.
world that I think are interesting, that I'd like to kind of elevate and let other women see what they've done and possibly, hopefully, be inspired
Yeah,
by that.
inspirational, right? Yeah.
Love it. Love
Yeah,
it.
women aren't as good as men at touting their horn and saying, "Look
Self
at me, this
promotion.
is what I've done."
That's a
And
real nice
so
way to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Some men are very good at it.
Yeah. Right.
Too good, maybe. Right?
Yeah, that's the
perhaps,
point. Right.
yeah,
So
without any substance, right?
Sometimes.
sometimes, right, right, exactly. So this is a forum, an opportunity to showcase and celebrate women who've had accomplishments. Is that essentially what you're trying to
Yep,
do?
yep.
Yeah, I love that. It's an interesting theme too. I like that. You know, that's a great hook. You know, because there's probably so many great stories to tell
Yeah.
and to showcase.
And on a level, on a whole different perspective, if there are any advisors listening to this, it what it does for me also is it enables me to call up somebody that maybe I don't really know that well, and I'd like to invite them to lunch, but maybe they wouldn't go to lunch with me, but they might be on my podcast. So it's a way for me actually to introduce myself to some people that I think are kind of interesting or cool, and I'd like to talk to. And they come in, and I get to ask them really fun questions.
So true. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. And so you get the opportunity to be interacting with people you might not otherwise have occasion
Mm,
to talk with, which, you know, may or may not have an opportunity to open the door for business. But even if it doesn't, it's like,
Mhm.
hi, I get to talk with these people who have such interesting stories that can be inspiring
mm,
and you can glean great information from,
yep,
right? Yeah.
exactly. Mhm.
Love it. Love it. So that's you know, I think one of the things when you do a podcast, you tend to be a curious person, don't you think? Because it's like the fun of it is engaging and learning about what makes them tick, what's the story of their success or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, TED Talks. I
Oh,
didn't hear
okay.
about that. Yeah.
All right. So I guess the most important TED Talk, there's a second one that I did. But the first one I did was really part of my whole passion. Almost call it like a passion project, this whole theme around supporting women and getting women engaged in finances. Um, I mentioned that I did both a lot of research and I do various seminars and things around helping widows and women in the process of making better decisions in divorce.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, the women are all ears. They're listening. They understand.
Mhm.
They need guidance, and so that's wonderful. However, at that point in time, like I'm always sitting there thinking, gee, I wish that you had become more financially engaged earlier on in your life where you were not a deer in the headlight uh, trying to learn this all at once during an already stressful
Right.
time.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to try to encourage those women that maybe don't need to do it out of necessity right now, but it's just a good skill set and awareness and knowledge to have.
Yeah.
So, it's been shown, historically, financial decision making has always been dominated by single men, single women, and married men, but not as much married women. And trying to get them to become engaged has been a little. I told you I just did that seminar a couple of days ago, and one of my friends came and she said, I invited somebody that I really think would really benefit from this. And she said, oh no, money's boring. I don't know. I'm not interested. It's not boring.
Yeah.
We're gonna have wine. We're gonna have fun. We're like, I'll make it fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, who doesn't love money, right? I
Right,
mean,
right.
come on.
Do you
But
think it's changing with the generational shifts?
Well, okay. So I think it's first of all, just I do want to mention that I've done this research where I've looked at financial knowledge and engagement and confidence across all the cohorts, and there still is a gap. After we use the regression analysis and we control for all the variables, there still is a gap. However, it absolutely is changing. I think what's really driving that is the fact that women are starting to become earners. They're if they're high earners, or they've inherited some type of wealth. It's now become a lot more personal, and they want to understand. And the high earner women, if you think about it, they're higher earners because they're also educated women. And so they're educated and they're successful, and they're not just willing to hand over the finances to somebody and say, "Oh, you manage it. I'll just like do whatever you say." They want to understand. They want to understand the pros and the cons, and they really so.
So I would say, I bet that, like me, you've seen lots of instances where there's some sad stories about families where some pretty questionable judgment has been used
All
by
the
the
time.
person who's handling the finances if it's not a collaborative endeavor. Do you want to talk a little bit about that just for as a like a starting point?
Oh,
Like
so
sort of motivation. Why do you need to pay attention to this? It's because it's not only because of ill will or bad judgment of like, unscrupulous things, but it can be just questionable risk taking, or there's some lot of data about risk appetite
yeah.
when it comes to gender, right?
Well, I mean, as you know, there's a whole body of uh, educational or research knowledge out there around behavioral finance and the bad decisions that people make that are inspired by their emotions or their instincts, but they're not necessarily rational. The whole premise of um, economics and good financial decision is that we're all robots making rational
Yeah.
decisions, and we're
This whole thing.
not. So
Yeah.
we're always impacted by our emotions. And one of the things that I try to do when I work with both men and women is try to understand. I tell them there's a technical financial answer, and then there's an emotional answer, and then the decision we might make is somewhere in between. I need to understand what's driving you and what other aspects might be coming into play, and maybe we're going to find some kind of middle ground. But yeah, I mean everything. So I do some volunteer work for this local women's. I created a program there. So there's a women's resource center down here. It's a 501(c)(3), and I created a program called Women's Money Empowerment. And um, every week I make myself available to talk to a woman about her financial situation. Just recently, I spoke to a lady who was really struggling financially, and she just took out additional debt to add a lanai to our house. And so we're talking about how to get out of this debt. And then she pops up with the whole, well, I need furniture for the lanai. And I said, well, what if we just make that your dance floor for a little while and just stop? Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was like nothing was penetrating her. She was really driven by her emotional need to have these things and just was not having it. And it can be very frustrating when people don't see the ramifications. Well, okay, so you're telling me that you don't like working 3 jobs, yet you're doing this to yourself. Why are you doing this to yourself?
Yeah. 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 All right. So, the behavioral element is an important part for any, whether gender irrelevant. It's part of what drives our decision making at times. There's also things that differences in the genders between in a variety of ways as it relates to financial issues, personal finance. Let's talk about some of the challenges that women just structurally seem to be facing as a starting point, that it makes it all the more important for them to take some ownership and involvement in their own financial life.
Okay, but Chris, would you mind if I just back up for a minute
Please
and
go ahead.
just I want to give the opposite. So yes, there are things that women will sometimes even allow their emotions to get in the way more than other people, but men do as well, more from
Mhm.
the standpoint and what's been shown, and
Over
hopefully I don't
overconfidence, right? A greater sense.
overconfidence, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's been shown over and over again. There's a couple of really great studies. My favorite is Barbara and Odine did a study back years ago where they took brokerage data and they looked at men and women investing, and they found that men traded way too often. They took much
Mhm.
riskier uh, positions, and the women, with their more disciplined approach, patience, and so forth,
Mhm.
were actually performed better than the men. So
Yeah. I think it's an important that's again, that's a great example of why there's benefit to that collaborative approach between men and women in a family or whatever, that it's not just one or the other. You get a little bit of these the blended benefits of everyone's perspective, right?
that's right. And the other thing too, I hope you guys, I'm sure you probably do, when a man comes into your office and he leaves his wife at home all the time, I hope you encourage her to come into the
Absolutely.
office too, because I mean
Absolutely.
the other thing is that whole. In fact, I'm working with a widow right now, and she said, my husband treated me like a queen, and I didn't need to worry about anything, but now I'm a deer in the headlight. I'm terrified, and a lot of men will do this. They actually are doing it to their wife. They don't realize they think they're doing a wonderful thing by
I think a
not
lot of
letting
times
her
it's
worry about it.
don't you think a lot of times it's not anything deliberate. It's just this division of resources, and you handle these things at the house and I handle those things at the house, and
Absolutely.
you get these habits that evolve and develop, and as you illustrated earlier with someone saying, oh, I don't like money issues, that there become these ingrained like perceptions and biases, right? And that's not always productive, right?
Right.
It's bad. So uh I don't do much cooking in my house.
Okay.
I should be doing more of the cooking too, right? Like, so that I know what I'm doing if something were to happen to my wife. As an example, you get these blended. We all do our different things, and each has their different behaviors.
That's right. Although I would argue that you would figure out how to eat
Mhm.
if a lot easier than
I
somebody.
wouldn't. I wouldn't worry about Chris on that.
Yeah, yeah, good point. Thanks, Jeff.
Well, but the thing is that,
Proven.
because finance is not just an inherently intuitive, oh, I get it just like that. It's a muscle that we develop over time, the knowledge and the comfort and the ability to understand the decision making happens over time. And
I often liken it to a language, that it's like it's a little bit uncomfortable. You're learning vocabulary, but eventually you can become fluent. And you have to be immersed in it a bit to become
right.
fluent.
And it's not that it's rocket science necessarily, but it is detailed and complicated. And yeah, I have to say, I mean, if I think about, the MBA and the master's and the PhD and the CFP and all the other little certifications that I got, and working as a, in the corporate world and and all the years that I've invested, including watching what happened in 2001 and 2008 and so forth, I can actually sit back and finally say, I think I kind of know something about finance. Um, I may still be wrong. And I just think, wow, like I thought 20 years ago I knew a lot. And every year I feel like, I mean, isn't this one of those professions where you're just always learning
Should be.
more?
Should be.
Yeah,
I
yeah, absolutely. And there's always more to learn. Yeah, yeah. Well, I have with the constraint of time, we're not going to get through everything. So, and so I think let's not go into some things. We'll have you back another time to talk about when it comes to I think there's just a lengthy list of things that are structurally challenging for women in a way that's different from men. And so that it creates this need for women to be more engaged. But today, let's focus on this this mention that you did with the seminar recently. Why is it that married women need to be more engaged, and how do you help them move from a complacent kind of disengagement to a more fully engaged approach?
Right. So, couple things. So that was what my TEDx was about, trying to encourage women to get engaged. And I got mixed reactions from people for sure. And I continue to get mixed reactions from people. I think it's really important. I'll provide. I start out a lot of times just rattling off the statistics. 8 out of 10 of us are going to be eventually on our own, solely responsible
Right.
for ourselves. The average woman the age that a woman becomes a widow is 59.
Wow.
That when a woman becomes a widow, 69% of those widows say that the most difficult thing over everything else is trying to figure out, how to navigate the financial decision making. They're overwhelmed. There's statistics around bad sleep. They're not able to sleep. All these different things. Why put yourself in that position? Why not? We're, as comprehensive financial planners, we are taught early on about protecting the downside, about making sure that you try to control the controllable, make sure that you have good life insurance if you're in your earning years, making sure that you maybe have, a decent homeowner's policy, all the things that we try to do, protect all the downsides. Well, that's a downside, is not being able to understand finance well enough that you can at least feel comfortable about navigating. And maybe you're not going to make all those decisions yourself. Maybe you're going to hire somebody, but how do you even know how to hire somebody that you can trust
Yeah.
if you don't know the right questions to ask?
Yeah. It's a good point. So how do you help people to know the answer to that?
So I often will try to, throw out some of those statistics and get them to see the potential obstacle. I will try to reposition the idea of, this is not about dying with a pile of money. This is about, how do you want to live your life? And there's this very important resource called money. And if you figure out how to use it properly, you can actually live a better life. You can make better decisions. You can make better choices and have some even potential opportunity that, if you can adequately protect yourself and your family, and then you figure out what's important to you, and you identify your goals and your behavior aligned with what's important to you in terms of your values. So now you're living your life on your terms. I mean, people talk about this concept of being authentic all the time. And I always want to say, well, what is that? Do you even know what your values are? A lot of people have never even explicitly thought about it. They think they're clear on their values, but they've never actually done the contemplative or reflective work to understand what their values are. So,
how do you help people identify that?
We have a bunch of exercises that we do. We'll help them.
I think a lot of times it's like, it's conceptually, it's like, yeah, I value family. I value, whatever. There's things that you reflexively might articulate. But I'm curious how you help someone
really dig down, right?
Dig into that to get a handle on, well, what do I value?
So there's a variety. I used to have a document. It was like a quiz or like just a list of all these different values, and we would talk about it and go through it. Recently, I was introduced to these cards. And by the way, I was introduced them through WEG. WEG has used them in other groups, and I'm happy to share them with you guys because they've been really interesting. What I like about the cards is that you can do almost a cluster analysis. So what we do is we divide the cards into two sections, those values that resonate with me and those values that don't. Then we take the values that resonate with me, and now I narrow them down to 10, 15 at max. And then I narrow them down even further and start clustering them. And what I try to get the client or the person I'm working with to understand is that even though these different values seem somewhat similar, there's one there's a hierarchy, there's a motivator. What is that motivating value? That the other values are still there, but they're being tested against that motivating value. And so, I mean, part of it isn't just the doing and coming up with your values. It is the process of talking it through and discussing it and just, kind of getting comfortable with, what really is motivating me in life.
The purpose of this then is to say, let's define your financial plan in keeping with what your true priorities are, not just some arbitrary, financial objectives, but something that is truly at your core. Is that the gist of it?
Absolutely. Money's a limited resource. It doesn't grow on trees. I always love this exercise that I do for my younger folks when I teach them how to use the financial calculator. And I talk to them about time value of money and about the limited resource and so forth. And I'd have them key in, okay, you're spending $7, $6, whatever at Starbucks every day. Okay, key that in. And you're doing that for, 5 days a week for 20, 30 years. Okay, key that in. Okay, what is that number? And they're all always really surprised. And I say, okay, I'm not going to tell you not to buy Starbucks. You go out and you buy Starbucks every day. There's your yacht. You can buy a yacht or you can buy Starbucks. You choose. And getting people to understand that they can achieve certain things, but they have to then not do other things.
These are choices. Yeah. Very good. So that values exercise a core part of your engagement with clientele? Is that a building block you develop?
So it depends. Now, I told you I came from the
It's a favorite phrase, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are New Yorkers that would have zero patience with that. So, I mean, I guess if I lived out in California, more people would be. So down here, I kind of feel the client out and feel for what they're willing to do with me. Sometimes just asking them to complete a risk tolerance questionnaire is like
teeth. Yeah. All right. So when possible, you pursue that. And then do you always like to start with a financial plan, the comprehensive financial plan as part of the process before you
I am a professor of CFP programs. I taught 2. In fact, I started a registered CFP program down here at University of South Florida. Nice. I will never, where if somebody comes to me and says, here's $1 million or here's 10 million. I don't care. It says, just manage it. I won't do it. I tell them I always have to do a comprehensive plan. I want to know what's going on in your life because I might be missing something. And so I will do a financial plan, a matter of fact, and not manage somebody's money. But I think comprehensive planning is really valuable. I think that everybody should do it.
Yeah, we're on the same page as far as that. I noticed you're involved in the Financial Planning Association. Yeah. Have you had a long time involvement with the Financial Planning Association?
Yes, I was involved in it back up north, and then I was on the board here at Suncoast in Sarasota. And our board is kind of, I don't know, it's not operating that well. There's not enough people that want to be involved. I don't understand why. So I am kind of a little bit involved.
Kind of unusual, right? Where there's a collaborative thing across the state of some kind with FPA.
Right. We do have a Florida FPA, and a matter of fact, they're planning a trip to go out to Tallahassee in a couple of weeks, and I'm trying to reorganize my schedule because they've been very active and involved with talking to our representatives about financial literacy, firstly in the high schools and then even in the universities, which has been a real hill to climb, which is surprising.
Yeah, it's such an important thing. Yeah, that's great. And thanks for your
worthy effort for sure. Yep.
Yeah, thanks for your involvement in that. I think we all need to, make it a priority to participate in our industry association at some time or another. So, well, we could keep talking, but I feel like we've covered around the time we normally would talk. What did you want to get in this first? We're going to have you back for sure.
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk more about some of the specific kinds of challenges women face along the way that are unique from men in their financial planning endeavors. But, particularly on this topic about married women and needing to pay attention, or anything else, was there anything else you wanted to address today?
Well, I guess, I suppose, without getting into all those other things, if women could just be a little bit reflective and think about all those big decisions that are made in your family, at your workplace, in the community, in the world, they have financial implications. Almost every decision that is made has some implications there. And the more you understand money, the more you can contribute and be at the table. So we as women need to be at the table. We need to assist. Everybody has something to contribute, but if you don't have that knowledge, you're going to be limited in what you can contribute. So from that standpoint, I'm hoping those higher earners who do want to do something with their lives will hear that.
Excellent.
Excellent conversation, Dr. Laura Mattia. Let's have you back and let's do this again and talk more about the kinds of challenges women face so that we can help inform our listeners and help them in their financial journey. Hopefully they're paying attention in ways that they need to, right? So you've been a pleasure to have with us. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much. It was great to talk to you both, Chris and Jeff. Wonderful to see you. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks everybody for being with us. If you need any help, you can reach out to, actually, Laura, do you want to share your contact information for our audience before we sign off with ours?
Sure. Well, it's similar to both of yours. It's lmattia@wealthenhancement.com. If anybody wanted to work with, do something with the three of us, even, we could work as a team. We are partners at this firm, and we can certainly work together to even help somebody.
Absolutely. And it's the kind of thing that there's different partners that have areas of expertise, and we all can work together. So glad to have you with us. We're going to have you back for sure. Until next time, everybody, keep striving for something more.
Thank you for listening to Something More with Chris Boyd. Call us for help, whether it's for financial planning or portfolio management, insurance concerns, or those quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Whatever's on your mind, visit us at somethingmorewithchrisboyd.com or call us toll free at 866-771-8901. Or send us your questions to amr-info@wealthenhancement.com. You're listening to Something More with Chris Boyd Financial Talk Show. Wealth Enhancement Advisory Services and J. Christopher Boyd provide investment advice on an individual basis to clients only. Proper advice depends on a complete analysis of all facts and circumstances. The information given on this program is general financial comments and cannot be relied upon as pertaining to your specific situation. Wealth Enhancement Group cannot guarantee that using the information from this show will generate profits or ensure freedom from loss. Listeners should consult their own financial advisors or conduct their own due diligence before making any financial decisions.